Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM, channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. It's another Relationship Friday conversation, and boy, do we have a doozy for you. During an Instagram post last week, heartthrob actor Kofi Siriboe of Queen Sugar and Harlem fame said monogamy is performative and restrictive. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
Lasted 3, 4, 5 years each, so then, and then to fast forward, my life changed, so there was a different, I started working every day. Then there's the fame element and the abundance of people and exposure. And, I've just had different shifts and different seasons where it seems like sometimes monogamy feels like role play, and it sometimes feels restrictive. So there's an element of it that feels performative, and I understand the tradition of it. I understand the deeper, I understand that, but then there's a part of me that just had questions. So I went through some phases where I'm like, well, why do we do it like this? And is this how I want to do it? And from observing people who play those roles, my parents included, I see some blind spots. You know what I'm saying? Does that mean we have to throw away the whole system? Not necessarily.
So here's a quick heads up. Some of tonight's discussion may not necessarily be appropriate for very young ears, since we will be talking about, in some cases, sexuality and relationships. So tonight, we are going to take a deeper dive into the issue he has raised about what is known as ethical non-monogamy or consensual non-monogamy. Is it a no for you? Or could it work for your relationship? Well, I have to tell you, the comments about that social media posting on Instagram did not disappoint, and my guest tonight won't either. Taylor Sparks is the founder of OrganicLovin.com. She's also a coach in ethical non-monogamy and a sex goddess. Dr. Christopher Smith is a social justice advocate and professor of education. Thank you both for joining this provocative conversation, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure being here.
So let me start off, first of all, with just a few fast facts. Approximately 20% of U.S. adults have participated in some form of an ethical non-monogamy relationship at some point in their lives. Around 4 to 5% of the people in relationships are presently involved in an ethical non-monogamy arrangement. And younger generations, particularly Generation Z, show a higher openness to non-monogamous relationships compared to older cohorts. I wanted to ask you, and I'll ask you first, Taylor, keeping in mind that Kofi Siriboe is single. He's not a married person. He is a single person. What were your thoughts about his comments?
I thought they were great. It's wonderful when somebody has self-actualization, self-realization in what it is that they want in the relationship. Because when you are clear with what it is that you desire, you can tell the people who wish to be in your universe, if you will, this is how I operate. So that way they could either say yay or nay. And there were plenty of people in the in the comments, there were plenty of women, I should say, in the comments who were actually like, God, please never send a man like that my way. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I think it was great of him to have that realization. So this way, everybody's clear. If you're not on this side of what I am hoping to do with my life at this time, then don't come over here. So I thought it was great. It was well done. Well said too.
Dr. Smith?
Well, I do think, though, it was great for him to be a public persona to express his understanding and the realization of the type of relationship structure that may work for him. I think there still needs to be further clarity into whether he was talking about what form of ethical non-monogamy was he talking about. I think a lot of the comments that did field in the section were due to the common misunderstanding between like ethical non-monogamous or consensual non-monogamous practice like polyamory as opposed to polygyny or polyandry. And also the very single point of view from it often discounts the nuances of people who are in established relationships that are opening themselves up to a form of non-monogamy that is ethical, honest, transparent, and authentic. And the difficulties that can be faced when it comes to creating community that may include children, that may include property, that may include all of these things. I think that a lot of individuals walk into the consensual or ethical non-monogamous space with this ideology of freedom when there's still a heavy, I wouldn't even say burden, but privilege of commitment to multiple people. So I would have, even though, the clip's short, I think there are so many things to be discovered in the ideology that this person is coming from and whether they've considered those nuances.
And I want to get into all of those terms that you mentioned in just a bit, but foundationally, and I'll just share with you what my take was. If he's a single guy, and I know some of the comments, I mean, get your hot buttered popcorn for the comments. I had a whole giant bag of Orville Redenbacher just reading, but it seems to me that he was being transparent, that he was being honest, and in some ways, as I said, he's a single person, a working actor, which is what he said. His career has taken off, and it just seems to me like he was saying, "Yes, I'm dating, and so you should. I'm letting you know," and maybe reading into it a little bit more is that perhaps, if I'm meeting you and I'm dating, seeing, other people, that is my expectation unless you tell me differently. And some women, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Taylor, some women may see, well, that's just a guy trying to have his cake and eat it too. But am I wrong in this interpretation?
Well, like you said, the clip is short. And as Dr. Christopher said, he could expound on what type of ethical non-monogamy or consensual non-monogamy, and they're not the same. Although all ethical non-monogamy is consensual, all consensual non-monogamy is not ethical.
So,
right?
so define, explain that.
So, ethics is the operative word, right? So you might, or someone might tolerate someone seeing other people and they may give them consent. Fine, go do what you want, right?
That's the do you boo part.
Do you boo, do what you want, but I we'll set up a boundary that you will use condoms with these other people, right? And so the person with the consent to go have sex with other people does so with the consent, but does not use condoms because they're not ethical.
Right.
And they have crossed that boundary, you see. So ethical is the operative word. And whether you are open, right, swinging, polyamory, polygynous, polyandrous, is the ethical part that makes the big difference. So cheating is non-monogamous. It's just not ethical. You see, you're having sex and doing whatever with lots of other people, but you are secretive, and there's a difference between privacy and secrecy, right? It's not the same. And for him to even be, I don't know if I want to say bold, because it's really no one's business. But since he is a public figure, he's like, this is how I'm rolling. This is how I'm dating. And then he went a step further and said, I'm not all that keen on monogamy anyway. And I do believe him. I'm not sure about you, Dr. Christopher, but I do believe it is restrictive. And people don't understand that monogamy as we know it today has only been this way the most recent couple of 100 years.
Yep.
It is based on culture, society's push for it to be this way. Ethical non-monogamy has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. It's not new. and is especially not new in the Black community. As those of us who are African Americans who were drug over here in the African community, it existed and still exists, albeit in a little different form, but it still exists. It's not new. The church is what has put a lot, Christianity itself has pushed a lot of this monogamous ways on us during slavery. And not only did, it was forced down our throat, and then we acquiesced to it and said, fine, we'll do it your way if that's what will help keep us alive, and I'll get to be with the person that I truly love. You see, so it's not new.
Dr. Smith, you mentioned polygamy, polyandry, and one other term,
polygyny.
Golly, that's a Scrabble. Let me write these down so the next time I play Scrabble, I'm going to be a winner. So what are all three, and how are they similar or dissimilar?
So the term that's often used to describe somebody who has multiple partners or multiple wives is polygamy. It's the form that is most used in a patriarchal sense to signify that a male of the human species has multiple partners that are female of the human species, usually identify as women, and they cannot interact with anybody else but that individual. They have socioeconomic dominance, the man does. They have religious and social dominance and the like. But that term polygamy actually really just signifies one individual having multiple spouses.
It can be wives thing.
Yeah, hate that show. Yeah. So you can break it down into two different sections. So the one that we often refer to and often think of is polygyny. That is where a male or a man has multiple female or women partners or wives, and that normal construction we think of. But then we can go to polyandry or polyandry, where it was women or females of the human species having multiple husbands, and they operated in that same way. And if you really look through history, again, and I really, Taylor Sex Goddess, I really love that you pointed out that these forms of relationship structure pre-existed the current forms of monogamy. So you would look at individuals, the women that would have multiple husbands, and usually they will be based in matriarchal societies, which a lot of pre-agricultural societies were based off of around the world, where women would have determinative power when it came to reproduction and even the act of sexual intercourse itself. And it's indigenous to and really relevant to African culture, but it's also relevant to some Eastern culture, Musola tribe in China. If you look in India as well, if you look in South America as well. I guess the point that I'm getting at is all these iterations of non-monogamy have existed before the colonial, capitalist, and extremely Christian or Abrahamic religion-based ideologies of relationship have existed.
Fascinating. Real quick, but before the break, and we may have to finish the answer on the other side, and I want to go back to this whole issue, Taylor, of, for example, single people. Is this, foundationally speaking, it seems to me that a lot of people in these single streets, they are dating, they are non-monogamous, they're just not talking about it.
They're not ethical.
They're not ethical. And ethics is the key word. And just because you are dating multiple people does not mean that you are sexually intimate with multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And
but should you? And from a man's perspective, though, because now we're going to get really into it. We've seen this on social media. Guy meets a lady, he takes her out. How does he ask that? Are you sleeping with somebody else?
Use your words.
Right.
It's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler than you think.
Yeah. Use your words. Use your words. Just ask. Why is there this why is it that we have such fear of asking the truth, of asking what we wish to know?
hold that point because I need
I'm
to
with you,
use some,
Taylor. We got to get into
I
it.
need to use some other words as we go into the break. Don't forget, you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about ethical non-monogamy. My guests are Taylor Sparks. She is the founder of OrganicLovin.com. She's a coach in ethical non-monogamy and a sex goddess. And Dr. Christopher Smith is a social justice advocate and professor of education. Before the break, I was asking about one of these uncomfortable conversations that a lot of single people have, when you meet someone, and usually, as we often hear, women will bristle if a man asks them, are you sleeping with someone else? And I dare not ask that question.
Oh my God, grow up.
Hold on.
It will protect you a lot, my brother.
Right, no, hold on. Let me.
Wait, Harold, you would not ask a grown woman if she was intimate with somebody else?
No, so here, let me clarify that.
Please.
Okay.
My ego is not so big as to think that, I think I have pretty good taste. If I like her, I think it would be egotistical and naive for me to assume that other people are not liking her. And so as a result, no, I don't ask. And I just assume that unless she says differently, that there may be someone else. Her life did not start on the day I met her.
But why wouldn't you ask? If that's something you're interested in knowing, not unless you just don't care.
And I think, at some point you would probably be in a position to ask, or she may, if she is, interested in me, that she would volunteer. But I'm going to tell you a lot. Listen, like you said, grow up. A lot of people.
You wouldn't ask that on the first date or the meet and greet or before the meet and greet.
If
Dr. Smith, help me here because they'll say none of your business.
It's not going to help you, but it's going to.
They'll say none of your business.
They ain't going to help you.
So I think, and this is something I contemplate often. I think a lot of what has to do with our relationships has to do with our ideologies around gender and what's expected.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, in America, if you are male-bodied and you look a certain way, there's a certain expectation of how you're supposed to act relationally, how you're supposed to act in society. The same thing, if you're female-bodied, you're supposed to act a certain way. I think these conversations are often just bogged down with so many normativities, whether it be gender normativity, mononormativity, amononormativity, heteronormativity, that people aren't really taught or even free enough to have these conversations in a comfortable manner. If I'm going to approach somebody and I have a certain ideology, whether it's monogamy or non-monogamy, these are questions that still need to be sparsed out. You need to understand where that person is in their own idea of relationship structures, what it is that they need, and to wait and to find out later on after you've invested time, energy, money, sweat, tears, blood, and all of that only makes the situation more complicated. I think the fear around it is because of the ways, particularly as African Americans, we have been taught about politics of respectability, the way that we've been taught about conservatism, the way we've been taught about not compounding our discrimination and presenting ourselves in certain type of ways. You should be absolutely okay and free to say, hey, yes, I'm interacting with these people in this particular way. And I would like to set the record straight. Non-monogamy is not solely about sexual interaction. There are asexual people that interact in non-monogamous ways. It can be emotional. It could be financial. It could be we travel together. So I think there's a deconditioning from this very normative ideology, one, about sex, but also about relationship that needs to take place in all of us in order for us to really operate in transparency, authenticity, and honesty. Because until then, we're going to be afraid to ask these questions that are so simple as, hey, we're going on this date. After this date, does this mean we're together in a certain way or not? How many bodies are you currently with?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just make that short with all that wonderful words that Dr. Christopher just said? Use your words.
Boom.
Like ask the questions you wish to know. And so within my 25-year marriage, we were 12 years ethically monogamous. And then at my request, we opened up our marriage. So we were 13 years ethically non-monogamous. We raised 2 children without having all this discussion about non-monogamy until they left the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we were very clear.
That sounds ethical.
Yes, it was ethical. It was, the thing of the matter was, it's that, adults, because Dr. Christopher brought up the thought process of people who are polyamorous and having children or polygamous, etc. Adult relationships are not your children's business until it's your children's business, right? So our children were teenagers when we decided to open our relationship. What we did in our own privacy as adults is none of their damn business. And when they left the house, we did eventually open up to them because my own business grew. And then I was on radio shows and podcasts, and I didn't want them to hit a button and go, oh shit, my parents are swingers. So we explained that to them. But as they became teenagers and young adults, I was very open with them being very open when it came to dating. Ask what you wish to know. If this person cannot answer a simple question about their sexual health, because your sexual health is your responsibility, just like orgasms are. I told my daughter and my son the same thing. And here we are now, and some of the couples and adults that I have coached who have been in long-standing relationships, been married 10, 15 or more years. Do you know they have not once asked each other, what type of sex do you enjoy?
Absolutely. They do not.
Like, why? Why are you letting what your mama told you when you were 15, because she was telling you some things to protect you? Don't be out there with them boys. Don't be out there with them short skirts on. Don't be alone with them boys. Because, some boys are not raised to understand that no means no. But now you're 42 and you still don't want to
do whatever.
Right.
You see. Go ahead, Dr.
And I think something else is important. You brought up the concept of family again. Oftentimes you see, particularly as this movement, which I don't even like calling a movement, it's just humans being human, has progressed, particularly in America. It doesn't sometimes come from this, there's a married couple that transitions into non-monogamy. It can come from people being non-monogamous, coming together and building family. Like my partner and I know my partner's 7-year-old kid, and I'm like a bonus parent. They know my kid. My kid's 15, my height, and smells like a teenager, and I love him to death. But he knows. And it's these conversations, to what Taylor said. Why not have these conversations? Why are we holding on to these things that we were taught a lot of out of trauma, fear, abuse, depression, stress, and the anxiety that comes with trying to operate in a lifestyle that is often misunderstood, judged, and persecuted?
So let me ask this question, and this kind of goes back to the use your words thing that you were talking about earlier, Taylor, because I think that one of the things, and certainly I'm in no position to speak for women, but I think that a lot of the concern is stigma and a double standard where, and how would you recommend that a man let a woman know that this is a safe space to have this conversation? It's we listen and we don't judge, but we also listen, we don't judge, because we need to know. Is this a 2-part question? Well, yeah, I'm asking because I'm interested in you. so you don't have to bristle about the fact that I'm just trying to get in your business. How would you recommend that something like that be handled?
What is the ultimate? What does the man want to know this information for?
Right.
Because
Exactly.
if he's and does it matter to him? Right. So if you and I are at dinner, or we've had a meet and greet, we've decided we'd like to get to know each other better, I would expect all kinds of conversations that would help you decide whether you would like to get to know me even further. And that would include some things about, are you seeing other people intimately? My question to men is, who do you belong to? Is there anyone out there that can call you theirs if they saw us on the street together?
That's a really, you know what? That is such a really important question.
Yes, because you may not think you belong to anybody else.
Yeah,
you're like, no, I'm single. But if you and I are down the street holding hands, and Susie Q walks up talking about what you doing with my man, I'm like, oh, so she thinks you're hers.
Are you in a relationship? No, is there somebody who believes that they are in a relationship with you?
With you, right? So there's lots of ways to ask the question. But again, at this age, which is any age 18 or above, if you are having challenges and worrying about somebody stigmatizing you because you say, actually, yes, I do have a lover. And he's like, oh, well, if you got a lover, then I can't be with you. Okay, next.
Right.
There's 8 billion people on this planet. Even if we said to Black women who have this small amount of men that are, heterosexual, he's a good guy, maybe he's over 5'8", whatever the stupid stickers think they want. But this is somebody you have an interest in. Trust me when I tell you, there is another man that likes what you like. I only love those that love me. And at one point I had a husband and 3 boyfriends, and we were like, hey, you got somebody else's man. I'm like, sharing is caring. You can have him too. But it is possible to find somebody that likes what you like without you having to be something else. Because you cannot pretend to be something else for long. It will not stay. It won't stick. But you only want the people who want you. So if you are the type of woman who enjoys dating, variety, then it's okay to say, I don't mind monogamy, but I'm currently dating, but I don't belong to anybody. It's not really their business also until it's their business. And the same true with men. I just want to know if you are in a type of relationship that would somehow stop you and I from moving forward if we so decided. You know what I mean? So if you're just dating women, you're just having, casual relationships. And that means, no, I'm just, I'm hanging out. So then we can move forward. But if you're like, I got a partner. Okay, I got someone that does consider me me hers. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does she know that you dating other people?
Right. That you're sitting here in the coffee shop with me.
It knowledgeable? Do they have knowledge of it? Yeah.
Right. And if he's like, yeah, she knows I'm out here in these streets, great. I'd love to meet her if we're going to go forward, because I want to know that.
That part.
So, Dr. Smith, I want to ask you about this, and I also, of course, want Taylor to kind of chime in, because, for the most part, we've been talking about, single, people who are not married. But as Taylor spoke about, earlier, she was, during her marriage, she was in a monogamous relationship, and then she, opened up her marriage. And I gotta say this tongue in cheek, and just between us brothers here, I can only imagine that if your spouse, and you're monogamous, just the two of you marriage, over a glass of wine, and she says to you, what do you think about, us, staying together, but seeing other people? The first thing that I think, it's like that alien in Star Wars. It's a trap. Don't answer. It's a trap. She's, and I joke, but a lot of men would think, oh, she's trying to jack me up right now. But how do you even answer that, no matter what your opinion is? But how do you get to the point where you want to have an honest conversation with someone about that without assuming that this is a trap?
Well, I would say first and foremost, I've been ethically non-monogamous for 14 years. So that's not a question I got to worry about. But when I do talk to fellow brothers about it, the one thing that I often say to them is that if you feel like it's a trap, is that a relationship you should be in the first place? If you can't be transparent, if y'all can't have those conversations, and if you were to actually, if she is fishing for a reason, she, they, him, shim, zer, whatever, are fishing for a reason to put you in a trap, to set you up in a situation where it creates conflict, and that is what's actually happening, then you probably shouldn't be with them, because that means there is no way in any shape or form, particularly as a male, that you're going to feel any type of freedom, trust, and like love, real love in that type of situation. On the other end, are you projecting your own insecurities and fears onto this? Because what if she turns around and says, hey, no, I'm actually considering this. How are you going to handle the fact that the person that you love, particularly if you're coming from a very traditional patriarchal monogamous mindset, may want to interact emotionally, physically, or romantically with somebody else? I think there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done. And again, going back, if you feel like it's a trap and you know it's a trap, you shouldn't be with somebody who's trying to trap you.
Well said.
That's not healthy. That's literally the definition of toxicity. They're playing games. And if there's one thing I've learned in my short years of life, my son would say I'm 60, but in my, but in my short years of life, listen, if I can't be my authentic self with you, then I don't need to be with that person. So we got to deal with our fears. We have to deal with our conditionings, and we got to deal with the fact that I know I'm awesome, but if LeBron James comes over to my partner, is like, I want to talk, you better tell me about everything. That is LeBron. I go to Pat, no. And if Gabrielle Union came to me, you better listen. I'll see you in a month. Like, it is what it is.
Or in the morning.
I'll
see you in the morning.
Or we'll fly you out to where we going. Like, what's going on? But we have to be able to be authentic with our partners in our marriages, in our relationships, with our friendships even. We have to be able to be very authentic and transparent. And if you're not in that situation, then you probably shouldn't be in that situation.
Let me ask you about this, Taylor, about feelings, emotions, love, specifically about the issue of jealousy. How is that, how is that handled if you are partnered, but your marriage is open, or however, it is described? I mean, humans are human, and they have feelings. And if Jane and John are deeply in love, but Jane says, I like a little variety, and John says, okay, but how can John be assured that she will not fall in love with Daquan and run off with him?
First of all, why is his name Daquan?
I was thinking LeBron.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Had me all LeBron thinking. I'm like,
LeBron,
you think they open? You think they open?
I don't know. I'm not getting into that.
Listen, LeBron, if you open, I'm open. Long as it's okay with your wife. I just need to get it okay for your wife. So the thing is that when one decides to open their relationship, regardless of the love style, you do not become exempt from your emotions.
Right.
Every emotion that you would have monogamously, you will have non-monogamously. Love, what feels like love, like angers, happiness, sadness, and insecurities and jealousies. You are not responsible for your partner's emotions. Everybody's responsible for their own emotions and their own. We all bring it to the table, right? So
I have a couple of things to beep out for this.
Well, there you go. But the thing
continue.
about jealousy, it is an emotion. And because it's an emotion, we have the ability to manage it. The modern romantic society has made us come to believe that jealousy is something that should be a part of our relationship. If our partner is not jealous, they don't love us. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. When you get triggered with jealousy and insecurity, that is your signal, kind of like a check engine light in your car, to kind of look under your hood and go, okay, what's going on? What is it that I need right now that is making me feel this way? It's not the thing over there or the person over there that is making me feel this way. This is an internal thing. So you are then to look inside and go, okay, now I'm going to need a moment. And I tell people, just because you have an emotion doesn't mean you have to act upon it right then and there. You have to figure out a way to calm yourself down. You have to look at the situation, what happened, who are the players involved that made you feel this way? And do all the players involved know that something happened, like there were boundaries? Were any boundaries broken? Do the players know there was a boundary in place? And if so, once you kind of take this a quick assessment, so to speak, and you still feel yourself kind of feeling something, do I need attention? Do I need assurance? Maybe I need to step away for a moment. Maybe I need to just go take myself to the bathroom and take some self-soothing techniques of breathing. Because you've agreed to this type of relationship and this scenario comes up that makes you feel a certain way. So it is your responsibility to control yourself. Take a walk. Hey, I'll be right back. I'm going to get some fresh air. Have a conversation with yourself. Find a mantra of your own. I'm okay. I'll be okay. I can stand this. I can stand to know that my partner is interacting with someone else. I can stand to see them kissing. I can stand to know that he or she may possibly love somebody other than myself. We're going home together. He's coming home in the morning. I'm okay. It is just an emotion like happiness and sadness. You have 100% control of it. You may choose not to. And then that again is on you. So if you feel yourself triggered, find some way to self-soothe, find some self-soothing techniques, have a conversation with yourself. And when you're triggered, that's a stress hormone, right? So the little hairs go up in the back of your neck. So your body's going to go into fight or flight. And, a lot of times people want to fight. And or they're going to shut down. But you have 100% control of that. Your body, your brain is just trying to protect you because it feels the stress hormones acting up. So you got to calm yourself down, take a step back, maybe. And I'm not saying don't talk about it, but if it happens at night or at a party or you've been at an event and you've been up all day and you've been drinking or you've had a long day, wait until the morning. Everything is better in the morning. And then have a conversation with your partner and say, I was triggered.
So to that point, and it can be for those who have not obviously been a part of this way of interacting in relationships, it is complex. But Dr. Smith, I think the thing that I take away from this conversation is this is not for everyone.
I would concur. I don't think anything is for everybody. I think what Taylor was saying, emotional self-responsibility is a tool that's developed over time. And a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people be very honest with the fact that they don't have that emotional self-responsibility tool in order to do this at the time.
Yeah, they said, yeah, this is not for me. I can't do it. Yeah.
It can't, and if somebody's just simply in the space where they can't do it, they can't do it. But I do think people close themselves off often to the possibility of doing it because of fear, ignorance, and just general misunderstanding. And I believe if people had more resources, more time, more patience, and more access to communities that can literally model what it means, the good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the sad, the jealous, and all of that, and how to properly handle it. If we had better media representation of what it really looks like outside of the stuff that we currently have rocking through social media and the like, even though some are great representations, others trash. I think that if we were allow ourselves to honestly just seek a sense of authenticity and freedom within ourselves, you would find a lot more people openly saying that this is a style of love and relationship that they want to engage in. And the same way, like my parents would always tell me, like, marriage isn't easy, but you work through it because it's what you want to do. If a lot of people were to in some way adapt the non-toxic pieces of that ideology of commitment, I think a lot more people would benefit from ethical and consensual non-monogamy.
I'll let you have the last word, Taylor. I've got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was, Dr. Christopher is 100% spot on with that. And although we're talking about ethical non-monogamy, this ability to emotionally manage yourself, it is something that is in all adult relationships, monogamous or non-monogamous. If you cannot regulate yourself, even in monogamy, the relationship is going to be doomed. It's not about others. It is about self-reflection and what can you yourself do that is going to make your relationship better because you are better and you have the growth.
I think that's a good place to end this conversation. Lord knows I've learned something. My goodness. Woo. Dr. Christopher Smith, Taylor Sparks, thank you both for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. That is the Daily Drum for this Friday, February 21st. For News Director Renee Nash, I'm Harold Fisher. Good night and have a